And the big story that we're going to start off with, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a state visit to the United States.
Absolutely. And this landmark trip, it's seen as a turning point in bilateral relations with deeper cooperation in the defense industry and sharing high technology in sharp focus. Today, Prime Minister Modi will lead the celebrations of the International Day of Yoga at the United Nations headquarters as well.
Starting in 2014, the International Day of Yoga has become one of the major events in the annual calendar of activities of the UN. In New York, Prime Minister Modi has a packed schedule and is meeting Nobel laureates, economists, artists, scientists, scholars, entrepreneurs, academicians and health sector experts.
Now, after meeting the Prime Minister, Tesla CEO Elon Musk said that the electric car maker will try to be in India as soon as humanly possible.
It was a fantastic meeting with the Prime Minister, and I like him quite a lot. He visited our Fremont factory several years ago, and so we've now known each other for a while. He really wants to do the right thing for India. He wants to be open, he wants to be supportive of new companies, and obviously, but at the same time, make sure it accrues to India's advantage.
Washington, D.C. will roll out the red carpet on the 22nd of June when Joe Biden, the American president, will host Narendra Modi, the Indian Prime Minister. The U.S. president will hold bilateral talks with the Indian Prime Minister going forward.
Now, on the 23rd of June, the Indian Prime Minister will be hosted by U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
PM Modi's U.S. visit is expected to give India access to critical American technologies Washington rarely shares with non-allies. The two countries are working together on advanced tech from AI to semiconductor chips and quantum computing, especially in the defense sector.
Now, the Biden administration, it's all set to sign a deal that would allow US-based General Electric to produce engines for military aircraft on the Indian soil. While India can manufacture jets domestically, it is keen to get the technical know-how to make aircraft engines. India intends to produce more than 350 fighter jets for its Air Force and Navy over the next 2 decades, which could be powered by the GE F414. Another expected announcement is India's purchase of 31 armed MQ-9B Sea Garden drones made by General Atomics, worth $3 billion.
The India-US bond is underpinned by not just global politics, but also business and economics. Washington and New Delhi have been moving closer for over 2 decades now.
Successive US presidents have displayed bipartisan support for stronger ties with the emerging Asian economy and regional power. President Joe Biden has built on that legacy and expanded cooperation. The United States sees India as a vital partner in its efforts to push back against China's expanding influence worldwide and strengthen security in the Indo-Pacific. Now, to discuss this further, for more on this, we are now being joined by Principal Diplomatic Correspondent Siddhant Sibal. Siddhant, thank you so much for joining us. My first question to you, Siddhant, Prime Minister Modi, of course, as we've been covering, will be leading the Yoga Day celebrations at the UN headquarters. It's being deemed as a unique occasion. What can we expect?
Well, we were there at the United Nations General Assembly, the whole WION team earlier today for the interview of the President of the General Assembly, and the excitement was palpable. We saw the last-minute preparations done, the Indian diplomats leading from the front with diplomats of other countries, and we also saw how they were practicing yoga as well. The yoga mats have been put up at the north lawn of the United Nations General Assembly, the United Nations headquarters, and essentially the message is clear that yoga is something that has its own popularity, and with Indian Prime Minister's popularity, it is going to add another layer overall. But largely, if we look at how Yoga Day has progressed, it was the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi who gave the idea of Yoga Day way back in 2014. And since then, it has progressed and it has become a mega celebration of sorts. In fact, it's daytime in Asia and India, and we have seen visuals coming of Yoga Day, from Pangong Lake to the Indian Defence Minister doing yoga at INS Vikrant. So essentially we will see those visuals coming soon later today at 5:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Yoga Days begins at the UN headquarters. Visuals that will be beamed across the world.
Right, absolutely.
Siddhant, now if you were to just shift focus to the defense ties between US and India, how they've been growing, the F414 fighter jet engine, which will soon be manufactured in India, then there is the Indus X. What kind of boost will this give to the Indian defense sector?
Well, India has been focusing on Make in India defense for a pretty long time. India has been calling for investment for defense manufacturing, and India wants to become that important center for countries in Africa and across the world for export of defense equipment. And for that, India is keen that there is more co-production. Now, Americans are willing to essentially be India's partner in co-production, and that is why we are seeing announcements after announcements. Now, it's an open secret that when it comes to the GE deal and the Predator drone deal, it will be happening later this week, and this will be a visible manifestation of how India and the United States are working towards defense, a common area of convergence, and also it serves the Americans as well, because they also are, like everyone is aware, that India is dependent on Russia for its defense needs, and India and the Americans are willing to provide that partner in terms of fulfilling India's need at a time when Russia is bogged down in a conflict that impacts its own defense industry.
Right, Siddhant, and just to expand on that further, of course, Indian-American diaspora is huge. So how do you feel that India-US closeness impacts the US going forward, especially the Biden administration?
Well, the Indian-American diaspora, 4 million members of the community, play an important role. In fact, they are the substratum of this very strong relationship. They are the living bridge of this relationship. And we saw earlier today how the Indian diaspora welcomed the Indian Prime Minister warmly at his hotel. And of course, how the Indian Prime Minister also broke the protocol. First, he went inside the hotel, he came outside, met the diaspora, and that shows that how the Indian Prime Minister also understands how the diaspora plays an important role in shaping the narrative for a country. Now, we will see later in this week the Indian Prime Minister addressing the members of the diaspora, but they're also keen to showcase how India is important to America. There are several important members of the Biden administration who are Indian Americans, and if we talk about members of the US Congress as well, who are Indian Americans. So the Indian Americans have grown their role in America from 1970s to today, first coming as migrants, working up through the ladder, and now becoming an important part of the policy making, something that Indian diaspora is known not just in America but across the world. People who are willing to work hard and be part of the society while they also in a sense celebrate their culture. As they say, Indian American or anyone Indian Australian or British Indians have two hearts. One is of course the host country, another is the Indian heart.
Right, Siddhant. Well, thank you so much for bringing us the latest on this. We will of course continue to track the developments very closely with you there.